So when I think about motivation, what I think about is mental wellness. Write that down, mental wellness. We got to get to a point in life where we just don't focus on physical strength. Like we all in the gym, we vegan, some of us, we eat right? We take care of our physical bodies, but we don't take care of the mind. And when the mind is messed up, everything is messed up. Like when the mind is destroyed, everything is destroyed. So number one, I wanted to tell the young players that we got to take our mental and emotional fortitude, we got to take that serious. I'm going to be real, probably just recently, I realized I was mentally ill. Like, E, what you saying? Like, flat out, my mother was 17. My father wasn't in my life. I lived on the streets of Detroit for 2.5 years. I lived in abandoned buildings. I ate out of trash can. Like, that was trauma. And my whole life, I was taught, like, you a man, be strong. Like, you a man, you don't cry. Like, you a man, be tough, right? And I personify that, like, flat out. Like, my videos, I ain't telling nobody, you get to whine, you get to give up, you get to cry. I ain't on that. But I realized in my own personal life, like, E, you've been traumatized, bruh. You came into this life with a 17-year-old. You came into this life without your father. Like, you came into this life without some of the skills that my son and my daughter got because my wife and I have been married 5 years before we had kids. So number one, when I think about motivation, I think about like, you gotta be mentally strong. And what does that mean? It means that in Miles' case, instead of looking at dark times and looking at what you don't have, that's a mental illness. A mental illness is, even when you got it good, you find a way to see the bad in what you have. A mental illness is, even though the Lord has blessed you, you don't see what the blessings are. A mental illness is, you don't have the ability to count on one hand all your blessings, and when you're still in the funk, you go to the second hand and you count. And so I started to become mentally strong, and I was able to look at, homeless ain't the worst thing that ever happened to you. Like, you could be dead, right? So what do you need to do? You need to start going to church. When I started going to church, I started saying, oh man, wow, I see they going to college. All right, yep, I'm gonna get my GED and go to college. I started looking at, the GED ain't the worst thing in the world, because the GED opened up the 4-year degree. And yep, it took you 12 years, but you finished. Now you can go get the master's degree. Yep, now you can turn the master's degree into a PhD. And so all of a sudden, I was homeless because I was thinking about I didn't have my father. My mother was young. I grew up in a certain neighborhood. I didn't have certain advantages that everybody else had. So number one, and I want to stay on this one because, like I said, this kid never cried. He never complained. And so one of the things we want to do with our young players is like really help them understand that while you got to go out there and put the points up, at the same time, you got to make sure mentally you're strong. Because a lot of stuff is going to happen in life, and you got to make sure when you get hit, you have the ability to get back up. Real quick, I want to make sure, when I say motivation, I'm actually talking about mental health. Yep. When I talk about motivation, I'm actually talking about, again, when I talk about motivation, I'm actually talking about, one more time. When I talk about motivation, I'm actually talking about, and how many of us, like for real, I know we hit the gym in the morning. I know we do that. I know we work out, we work on our games, but just being real, how many of us spend as much time on our mental health, motivation, like the ability to say, my favorite quote, never let a good crisis go to waste. My son, can you give me, Candace got the book. Can you let me see the book real quick? So mental health is, we are in a recession, right? That's mental health, we're in a recession. Like as a speaker, I don't know if y'all know what this means, but as a speaker, they said something about social distancing. Rocked my whole career. That's all I do, thank you, son. That's all I do is speak. So in 2019, when we entered 2020, they really said my whole job was gone, right? I'm accustomed to being in the locker room or being on the field or being at a stadium or being out in the country, talking to 10,000, 5,000. My whole job was gone. So what does mental health look like? It looked like, instead of me saying, man, I done lost my whole job. Like I'm used to making, at that time, $50,000 a pop. Like, ain't nobody paying that for no Zoom. Mental health was, E, relax, E, count your blessings, E. Like, E, look within and see what can you do, even though they've taken your main source of income, what could you do? And so for those 2 years, I wrote a book. I got a publishing deal. right? I wrote a book, right? They came to me, hey, we're gonna pay you this much. I said, I'm good. I want a greater percentage. Like, I'm betting on ET. Like, flat out, I'm good. You ain't gotta give me nothing up front. I don't need no royalty. I don't need nothing. I just need a greater percentage because I believe I'm gonna sell 1 million books. So during the recession, my mental health was like, yo, they've taken the one thing that you know, the one thing that you're good at. They've taken that away from you. I thought it was gonna be 6 weeks, then it was 6 months, then it was a year, then it was 14 months, 16 months. It was 18 months before I got back on the road again, right? Motivation is mental. Yeah, come on, motivation is mental. Good, motivation is mental, and we gotta work on that. So being honest, how many of you in the room, you spend as much time on your mental health as you do in the gym, or as you do playing basketball? Let me see your hand, right? And it's cool, whatever, but I'm just saying, I got a kid who is dying of cancer. He knows he's going to die. He's swollen, the stuff is coming out, but every day when I see him, every day when I talk to this kid, he's still like, E.T., I have nothing but positive things to say. That's because physically he was handicapped, but mentally he was strong. And so we got to work on our mental. So number 2, the role requires soul. So of course we got to be selfless with the sacrifice. You know, I'm walking up the streets of Vegas. I'm, doing my thing. People pulling me to the side like, yo, E, flat out. You know how bros are. They like, E, I don't take pics with grown men. You know how we do. Sometimes you see celebrities, bro, and they kind of play you. So I want to take a pic, but I ain't know. I'm like, bro, let's take this pic, bro. They was like, E, thanks for all the videos. It's like, bro, that's what I do. That's what King did. That's what X did. That's what Garvey did. That's what Sojourner Truth did. That's what Harriet Tubman did. Like, that's what I'm on. The same way when you guys were young, and I don't know who y'all looked up to, but whoever it was, Dr. J had the rock, Michael Jordan had the rock. The same way when you get that rock in your hand and you feel that way, that's the same way I felt about Martin Luther King when I would hear him speak. Like, yep, I can do that. The same way when I would hear X lead a group of men, I was like, yo, I could do that. The same way with Marcus Garvey, when Marcus had, like, we going back to Africa and we got that pride. I'm like, yep, I could do that. So the same way you felt about that rock is the same way I felt about that mic. And I knew at a young age I could speak, and I was like, E,